Hello and welcome. My name is Elizabeth. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm really glad you're here. I have a true crime story for you today, but I'm going to start off by asking you a couple of questions. Do you really know who it is you're talking to on the other end of your computer? Do you really know who it is that's on the other end of the phone line? Do you really know who you're sitting next to? You'd think you'd be sure you'd know who you were sitting next to and even more so who you were kissing, right? Seems unbelievable that someone wouldn't know and be absolutely sure of who they were sharing a bed with. But in this story, we will meet six different teenagers. But which ones are real? Which ones are fabricated? Which ones are in the know and which ones are being duped? And who is behind all of it? This case involves fraud. Some of it's catfishing, which is online fraud, but it's not all online. It involves teenagers who are by design naive, which is not a knock on teenagers. Their brains just haven't finished what they're developing. And finally, and sadly, it does involve SA. Now, if you're not in the headspace for that, I totally understand. This is your warning to click away. However, if you're anything like me, you're going to want to stick around for this crazy ride. Our story today centers around three teenage girls from the UK. I'll be using the names as they are represented in the media. Some victims want anonymity, some have come forward with their personal story. Neither is the proper way of responding to trauma. Each victim of abuse has to find their own way through the pain. No judgment towards either are coming from me. They both survived, and therefore, in my eyes, they are absolutely warriors. Okay. Back to our three teenage girls. Gemma Barker is 18, Jessica Sayers is 15, and Alice is 16. Alice and Jessica have been friends before meeting Gemma. Alice had met Jenna independent of Jessica, but all three girls had met. And even though Gemma was older than the two other girls, she had a license and a car, and the two other girls loved that. Having access to a car when you're a teen is a special kind of freedom. Now, Gemma had a boyfriend by the name of Jack Lampert, and over Facebook, Gemma had introduced Alice to Jack's little brother, Aaron. She had looked at his Facebook page. She liked what she saw. He was cute in the pictures, and they started chatting. They started chatting over Facebook, and they shared MSN Messenger handles. The two were getting to know each other, and were starting to start at least a friendship. It took Alice a long time to convince Aaron to meet IRL, which means in real life. Aaron and Alice had started to meet up, and Alice really liked Aaron, even though he was weirdly particular about his hat. It was the kind that came down over his ears and had strings with what the girls describe as bubbles at the end and a pom-pom on top, and he never took it off. Never took it off. Alice had never seen her own boyfriend's forehead, besides in pictures. My thought is that, he had bad like forehead acne or had a bad haircut or like someone played a trick on him and shaved part of his head. Like something he was embarrassed about that he was trying to hide. And what's more, teens are, at this point, you're just trying to figure everything out. You're trying to figure out yourself and trying to figure out others. You're trying to figure out the world around you. I mean, I can't blame one for having a hat that made him feel safe or protected or whatever it was. Aaron would not only become Alice's boyfriend, but he would become close friends with Jessica. Now, a few notable and odd things. Jessica noticed that Gemma and Aaron had similar looking teeth. Both had braces, and for those in the United States, I don't believe braces are quite as common as they are in the UK as they are here. Please correct me if I'm wrong. When Jessica brought it up to Aaron that he resembled Gemma, he ended up making an excuse about being sick in order to leave. Also, oftentimes when he felt he wasn't really getting enough attention from Alice, he would drop these horrific tales on her. His brother had drowned. A different brother had been diagnosed with leukemia. And while Gemma had met the family plenty of times, Alice was never invited over and had never met any of them. Possibly to distract Jessica, Aaron set her up with his friend Luke. His name was Luke Jones. And Jessica and Luke started chatting over MSN Messenger and Facebook as well. Jessica describes Luke as being cute, having a certain style and haircut, both of which she really liked. But when they met in person, he would wear this knit cap pulled down like past his eyebrows, and then the hood of his hoodie up and pulled down just as far as his cap. This would allow for only his nose down to be seen, so never the top half of his face. Jesse describes his voice as a deep whisper, both on the phone and in person. The two would get together, they would hang out, they would chat, they would hug and kiss. I think the kids in UK call it snogging. Totally normal teenage stuff. Until the day Luke did not listen when Jessica said no. She wasn't ready for anything beyond what they, like I said, call snogging in the UK, just kissing and, hugging and stuff. But this boy was putting his hands down her pants and putting his fingers inside of her. She had said no more than once. And when it was over, she didn't want to have anything to do with Luke ever again, which is completely understandable and good for you, girl. In fact, this 15 going on 16-year-old girl is so strong. She may have been naive in this situation, but she was and is strong. She said no, she meant it, and she didn't take him back. So after that, she ended up meeting a bloke, a lad, a boy named Connor McCormick. Now, Connor had a different style than Luke. He spoke and typed in a much more mature manner. He also had a few peculiarities with his personality as well. He also wouldn't take his hat off. He wore a baseball cap, though. He also wouldn't talk directly to her in person. He would type text into his phone, hand it to her, she would read it, and then she would respond verbally. He was shy. He told her he had alopecia, which her brother had. Alopecia is a disease that causes your body to not allow your hair to grow. So he may have been embarrassed. To be bald as a teenage boy can be embarrassing. Or to have bald patches, which could probably in some ways be worse. So she completely understood. Her brother had this. She got it. She didn't have a problem with him leaving his baseball hat on. He was respectful with her gran. That's who she lived with. Starting at age, I think 14, she had started living with her gran. And her gran actually really, really liked him. She didn't like the fact that he wouldn't take his hat off indoors, but otherwise she liked him. He was respectful. He was kind. He dressed nice. She liked him. Meanwhile, Alice and Aaron's relationship had moved along and grown to include sex. Alice had been a virgin prior to their relationship with Aaron and had no frame of reference for the experiences they were engaging in. Aaron insisted they keep the lights off and their clothes on. Alice was fine with this because, again, no frame of reference. I think also a lot of teenagers keep the lights off or don't necessarily look, because they're not really ready, but they're curious, and that's a whole other TED Talk. Then then one day, just they're in their regular relationship. Aaron is over at Alice's house. Aaron is playing video games with Alice's brother, and Aaron needs something out of his backpack. And so Alice goes and she looks into his backpack, and to her surprise and horror, she found a pink dildo. She asked him about it. Why do you have this? Have you ever used this on me? And he admitted, yes, once he had used it without her knowledge. Alice was understandably very upset. Meanwhile, a Friday evening would arrive when Connor asked to spend the night at Jessica's house. His nan had just passed away, and she understood how devastating that could be and wanted to be there for him. They shared the bed together with, and they were cuddling and kissing and talking and cuddling and kissing, which Jessica was totally into. But then he started to go past the line of what she was comfortable with. She said no, but she reports he did successfully SA her. She was horrified and scared and confused and 16 years old. Remember, unfinished brain. It was at this moment that her friend Alice would actually give her a call. And Alice could tell that Jessica was clearly upset, but she didn't have like a way of finding out because Connor was sitting there right next to her and she wasn't going to share the details. In fact, Connor would snatch the phone away and type to Jessica, remember he wouldn't speak to her, that she should tell Alice Aaron had been in a car accident that evening and was now on life support in the hospital. I think at this point we can all see the lies have gotten completely out of control. Alice is shocked, horrified, guilty for not talking to him much over the last week. She's scared. She doesn't know what to do. She's upset. They decide they'll talk again in the next morning. And Connor would fall asleep in Jesse's bed. And Jessie could no more sleep than she could close her eyes for more than a moment lying next to the boy who had just violated her. While he was asleep, his hat would slip off and Jessica would see his profile. What did she see? More to the point, who did she see? Because she did not see her boyfriend, Connor. She saw Aaron, Alice's boyfriend, Aaron. Aaron, who had supposedly been in a car accident, was on life support. Aaron, who had been her good friend. She had no idea what to do. She was stunned, not in a good way. In the morning, she would jump out of bed, get changed behind her dressing table, and wake him up and kick him out of her bed and then her house. And from that moment on, Connor was no more. Just disappeared in the wind, gone. But Aaron would appear the next day. In fact, he appeared in Alice's father's car when he showed up at school to pick her up. And she got really aggravated. No cuts, no bruises, no broken bones. In fact, he told her only had whiplash. Well, now she had whiplash from the emotions. I mean, she thought he was on life support. Now he's just sitting here, like perfectly fine. Someone is messing with her emotions. Okay, so it was later that day that Jessica would go to the police to report the SA perpetrated by her friend Alice's boyfriend, Aaron, on her. She would contact Alice after talking to the police, and at first Alice is confused. Wasn't he in the hospital that night? Turns out, no. And the girls really didn't need to play detective anymore because the police were involved now. Police worried that they might not be able to locate Aaron, but he was at Alice's house when they arrived. Aaron would get taken down to the police station. Meanwhile, on Facebook, Luke would post that he was the one who had SA'd Jessica, and Aaron was now getting the blame. He posts he did it because he wanted her to hate Connor. So the police begin to question Aaron, and they also do a search of him. And he struggles. He doesn't want them to take any of his things off. And he really struggles when they try to take his hat. And when they finally get it off, all this long hair would fall down around her shoulders, and the police would exclaim, "You're a girl." And it wasn't just any girl. It was Gemma Barker, the two girls' older friend. She had catfished Alice as Aaron, she had catfished Jessica as Luke, and then catfished Jessica as Connor. She had SA'd her friend Jessica at least twice. She made both girls believe that they had been in loving and sexual relationships with boys. How do I even perpetrate such a thing? Alice and Jessica were both gobsmacked by this information. They could not believe it. They didn't understand it. They had so many questions. Alice wondered, was she still a virgin? Jessica wondered if she was a lesbian. They were both deceived at a time in their lives when so many things are formidable. I find myself completely at a loss when I try to consider what these girls went through. They thought they were in love, and it turned out to be something very different, something sinister. Now, there is a theory that maybe Gemma had a crush on Alice, which was why when Jessica's boys had both SA'd her, but Alice and Aaron's relationship had been fully consensual. And that's another issue. Is it truly consensual when you don't know what you're agreeing to? In this case, Alice had agreed to have sex with the boy she was dating. She did not agree to be penetrated by a sex toy being wielded by a female friend. I mean, all of this lives in such gray areas. But there is a legal outcome to all of this because Gemma did cross some legal lines. Okay, so here's crazy. So Gemma at this point doesn't stop catfishing. Okay. In fact, she claimed that Luke Jones punched her, broke her jaw, and she was now seeking compensation from the criminal compensation department, which is something I really don't understand, but must be a thing in the UK. Remember, Luke Jones is a figment. He doesn't exist. And this is where Gemma crossed the legal line for fraud. Gemma Barker would plead guilty to 2 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of fraud. Prior to sentencing, the judge would order psychiatric testing done on Gemma. She would be diagnosed with borderline learning issues and difficulty understanding social situations. She was placed on the autism spectrum. She would be sentenced to 2.5 years behind bars, which means that she's now out of prison. Both of the teen girl victims in this story were healing well when they agreed to be part of a documentary a few years after this whole thing happened. Both girls had found new boyfriends, and as Jess put it, he's a boy with boy parts. Find interviews with this incredible Jessica Sayers person. She is so awesome. I find her delightful. she's great. Like she's sure of who she is. She's proud of herself. She is not going to let this get her down. She is, she's upset. She wants everyone to know so that people don't let this happen to them. But she's really not letting it get her down. It's amazing to watch. So let me know what you think, because I find this whole thing so wild. At first I'd wanted to say no way. How could you not know? But then I remember how not smart even the smartest teenager is. In the dark, no clothes actually being removed. It really is possible. Crazy, but possible. Just want to take a quick moment and shout out to one of my subscribers, Rice Cakes 0527, who was able to correctly identify which movie and TV show I was quoting in the Teresa Ann Beer video. Well done. You get 2 gold stars. Do me a favor. Be nice to yourself. Drink more water, get more sleep, naps rock, but take care of yourself. And I will check you next time. Bye.